All right, guys, today we're going to talk about experimental versus theoretical probability. And we're going to start off with the definitions of both. For experimental probability, the definition of experimental probability is simply the results of an experiment. Results. All right, and if we were to put that in a formula, it would just be the number of events over the number of trials. Or let's say this number of favorable events over the number of trials. All right. And then for theoretical probability is what we've been learning so far. Theoretical probability is what is expected to happen. All right. And we're just going to have favorable over the total number of outcomes. So favorable over total. So those are definitions of both. So just put it in a nutshell. Um, Theoretical probability is you using data to assume what's going to happen, and experimental probability is actually going out and doing it. I'm at 10%. All right. To I guess to show you exactly what that means is let's look over here to the right side. It says, how can you tell which is experimental and which is theoretical probability? Let's take tossing a coin, for example. So what we learned last week is theoretical probability. If I were to toss a coin 10 times, I know there's a 50-50 chance of landing on heads or tails. So I'm going to use H to represent heads, and I'm going to use T to represent tails. I know to get heads, there's a 1/2 chance of me landing on heads. And for tails, there's also a 1 in 2 chance of me landing on tails. If I wanted to know how many times I'm going to land on heads in theory, I'm going to multiply 1/2 times 10 if I'm flipping that coin 10 times. And I know 1/2 times 10 is equal to 5. So I should land on 10. I should land on heads 5 times. Now, if I did that same thing with tails, I know there's a 1 in 2 chance I'm going to land on tails. And if I flip that coin 10 times, 1/2 times 10 is going to get me 5. So in theory, I should land on both an equal amount of times, which is 5. Now, experimental probability is me actually going out and flipping this coin 10 times and seeing how many times I land on both. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, I found this little website that has a coin, and notice on the number of tosses, I went ahead and I put 10. So we're going to go ahead and simulate tossing this coin 10 times. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and have it in a table. And notice, when we actually flipped the coin 10 times, it landed on heads 3 times and it landed on tails 7 times. So in theory, we should have landed on heads 5 times and tails 5 times, but it doesn't always work out that way. All right, so experimental probability is actually going out and doing it and actually seeing how much each one ends up being on. And we could do this with a dice. We could do this with a spinner. We could do this with grabbing marbles out of a bag. So there's so many different ways that we could see the difference between experimental and theoretical probability.